When Lilly Singh first hit the YouTube scene in 2010, she was everything the platform was craving: funny, fresh, and culturally relevant. Uploading under the name Superwoman, she used skits, impersonations, and high-energy humor to connect with a generation of young viewers, especially children of immigrants who saw themselves reflected in her videos. Her content wasn't just entertaining, it was validating. She joked about strict parents, awkward school experiences, and cultural clashes with such charm that it felt less like watching a show and more like being seen. She was an underdog turned icon, and millions loved her for it. By 2015, she was one of YouTube's biggest stars. Her channel was racking up millions of views. She had over 14 million subscribers, a best-selling book, her own global tour, and an image that was family-friendly, brand-safe, and highly marketable. YouTube featured her in rewinds. She partnered with massive brands. She even walked the Met Gala red carpet. On the surface, Lilly had everything. But behind the scenes, her success was built on a formula that wasn't built to last. YouTube was changing. By 2018, the algorithm began favoring longer, more analytical content videos that rewarded retention and commentary over short-form comedy. Meanwhile, Lilly's content remained the same: fast-paced skits, kid-friendly humor, and exaggerated characters. Her audience, now older, began to drift. Her uploads were getting fewer views. The relatability that once defined her brand now seemed out of sync with what YouTube had become. But rather than reinvent her channel, Lilly set her sights higher. In 2019, NBC announced that Lilly Singh would be the new face of their late-night lineup, replacing Carson Daly in the 1:30 a.m. slot. The move was historic. She'd be the first openly bisexual woman of color to host a late-night show on a major network. The announcement was framed as a win for progress, but the reality was far less empowering. NBC assumed Lilly's massive online audience would follow her to television, but they failed to consider who that audience really was. Her fan base was primarily teenagers and young adults, not exactly the demographic watching television at 1:30 in the morning. The very people who supported her for nearly a decade were effectively excluded from her new show by the time slot alone. Then there was the issue of format. Lilly was used to writing, filming, and editing content by herself. She thrived on spontaneity and direct interaction with her audience. But A Little Late with Lilly Singh was written by a team of network writers, taped months in advance, and followed the same rigid structure as traditional late-night shows. She wasn't just changing platforms, she was changing everything that had made her successful in the first place. The cracks showed almost immediately. The jokes felt forced, the delivery was awkward. Critics slammed the writing, calling it stiff and out of touch. One infamous segment where Lilly read hate comments while dancing went viral, not for being funny, but for being painfully cringeworthy. Audiences didn't laugh, they winced. The disconnect wasn't just about humor, it was about control. On YouTube, Lilly owned every part of the process. On NBC, she was simply the face of a production she didn't control. Creatively, she was boxed in. Her producers didn't understand what made her successful online, and their attempts to replicate it on television fell flat. Lilly wasn't hosting her own show, she was starring in someone else's idea of what her show should be. It didn't help that episodes were taped weeks or even months in advance. Unlike other late-night hosts who could respond to current events and news cycles in real time, Lilly's content was outdated before it even aired. When the pandemic hit, her show continued broadcasting pre-recorded segments about vacations and public outings while the rest of the world was in lockdown. It made her look disconnected, even tone-deaf. Then came the controversy. In one episode, Lilly made a joke comparing kids wearing towels on their heads to her Punjabi friends. The backlash was immediate. Critics accused her of reinforcing harmful stereotypes. Lilly apologized, calling it a teachable moment, but it highlighted a deeper issue. In trying to navigate two worlds, mainstream and internet, comedy and representation, she was held to impossible standards. Her attempt at inclusivity was interpreted as ignorance, and it added fuel to a growing fire of criticism. As the hate comments grew louder, something changed. People weren't just criticizing her show, they were turning on her entirely. YouTube commentary channels began dissecting her every move. They said she was no longer funny, that she had sold out. that she had abandoned the very audience that made her famous. But the truth is, Lilly didn't abandon anyone. She was pushed into a system that didn't understand her and forced to fit a mold that never suited her. Despite everything, NBC renewed her show for a second season. They dropped the live audience, changed the tone slightly, and allowed for more topical content. But it was too late. The damage was done. Ratings continued to fall. The fan base that once cheered for her was gone. The internet, once her kingdom, now treated her like a punchline. In 2021, A Little Late with Lilly Singh was officially cancelled. But that's not where the story ends. Other creators began to speak out. Brittany Broski, a fellow content creator, said publicly that Lilly had been set up for failure. The writers didn't understand her, the format didn't suit her, and the expectations were completely unrealistic. Broski pointed out that NBC tried to make Lilly fill the shoes of a traditional straight white male comic, ignoring everything that made her unique. In hindsight, it's clear that Lilly's downfall wasn't just about bad jokes or bad ratings. It was about a fundamental misalignment between who she was and what the industry wanted her to be. She was never meant to be a traditional host. She was an internet personality, raw, unfiltered, and direct. NBC took that, polished it, censored it, and broadcast it to an audience that didn't know what to do with it. The failure wasn't just hers, it was the networks, it was the industries. It was a system that took one of the internet's most authentic voices and silenced it under the weight of corporate expectation. Since the end of her show, Lilly has tried to rebuild. She's taken roles in films and television. She's become a judge on Canada's Got Talent. She's written a second book, and while she's still active, the cultural momentum she once had is no longer there. She no longer commands the same level of influence or admiration that she once did. And that's why the title, Why Everyone Abandoned Lilly Singh, feels so fitting. Lilly Singh's rise to fame was meteoric. A South Asian woman who built an empire from her bedroom, she defied odds in a space not made for her. Her relatable sketches, quirky humor, and heartfelt vlogs resonated deeply with an entire generation that was desperate to see themselves reflected on screen. She was the embodiment of authenticity, a creator who made people laugh while breaking boundaries. But over time, that version of Lilly, the one who invited you into her world, who felt like a friend, began to disappear. It wasn't because she lost her talent. Lilly Singh is still funny, still intelligent, still full of charisma. But what made her special was slowly stripped away as she stepped into the world of mainstream entertainment. Television, with its polished sets and carefully curated content, demanded something different, something shinier, safer, and less real. The raw edges that made Lilly human were sanded down. Her humor, once bold and specific, became generic. Her voice, once personal and powerful, was diluted to fit a mold designed by people who never truly understood what made her successful in the first place. The transition to late-night television should have been a triumphant moment, a symbol of progress, but instead it highlighted the disconnect between internet culture and traditional media. On YouTube, Lilly thrived because she had full creative control. She made what she wanted, how she wanted, and spoke to her audience like an equal. But on network television, she was just another host, boxed in by format, censored by expectations, and burdened by the pressure to be everything for everyone. Her show, A Little Late with Lilly Singh, struggled to find its voice because Lilly wasn't allowed to fully use hers. Her downfall wasn't a dramatic crash, it was a slow fading, a gradual loss of connection with her core audience, who no longer recognized the person they had once admired. It wasn't betrayal, it was heartbreak. The girl who once sat in front of a camera and made millions feel seen had become a polished brand, carefully managed but ultimately disconnected. The spark was gone not because she changed, but because she was forced to. Lilly's story isn't an isolated case, it's a cautionary tale, a blueprint for the modern creator tempted by the allure of traditional fame.